Hello everyone, welcome to the Leo New Moon Solar Eclipse video. I am Suzzy, professional practicing trauma-informed astrologer and metaphysical practitioner. I'm trying to serve you, Leo, today. We're going to also talk about deconstructing. Every time I do any kind of astrology on here, anytime I do any kind of video, whether it's a new moon or full moon or any other astrological subject, we are always going to be deconstructing the stereotypes. There is a difference between an archetype and a stereotype, and that's really important when we talk about Leo. So, before we begin, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're seeing this clip anywhere else, I am mostly on Patreon. That is due to privacy settings and all kinds of other settings that they changed over on YouTube that makes my community feel less safe and also takes some of the integrity out of the work that I do. And so you will find me on Patreon. There are free levels. It's a fun community. Even in the free level, you can join our chat. There's an evolutionary Avengers Assemble chat, and people get to just come in and share their good news or their frustrations. It's just a great community. We do Tarot Tuesdays. I just put that up earlier where I pull cards and I invite you to feel into the card, and that is personal development, it's spiritual development. We do a little bit of that over there as well. I also have a moon calendar on my website right now, which is amazing. And it's probably going to go on sale because July is over. It's just July through December. It's very inexpensive. It's only $5 shipping, but it's a personal development tool. I have all of the new moons and the full moons in the back, my recommendations for moon water, crystals, intentions. It's one thing after another. There's resources. And so there's tons of stuff. Go peruse the website. And I think that is it. I would love to see you over on Patreon. Also, there is no more room in our bonus level. I had it capped because those people get a lot. They get a question every month. They have new moon, full moon videos, especially with their chart, just little snippets, but a little preview into that. We just did a Zoom workshop, which everybody loved, and that was just for the bonus. So that level is full. But the evolutionary explorers and the stargazers and the evolutionary extra, those levels all have openings that you can still get into. That being said, let's get into this new moon solar eclipse. All right, here we are, Leo new moon solar eclipse. And let's talk a second before we move on about what a solar eclipse looks like. There is a partial pathway that goes through some of the northern Midwest during the day, which in solar eclipse is pertinent. However, eclipses don't mean destruction. What this is going to be is it's going to feel like a really intense new moon. And if you've been here a minute, you've heard me talk about a new moon is like walking into your kitchen in the middle of the night in the dark. You do not need the lights on. You do not even need your eyes open to go find that pitcher of filtered water and a glass. You know your way around from the inside. You can do this with your eyes closed. It is about what we already know on the inside, is what we've already built on the inside. So there's going to be an intensity to that in this Leo new moon solar eclipse. Now, also, of course, because we are eclipsing the sun and the sun is Leo's ruler, that's also going to bring a tiny bit of intensity. However, that should not bring fear. If it's not happening directly, if you're not, even if you are in the path, most of us won't be. But even if you are in the path, this is just an intense new moon. Okay. What happens in the outside world, what happens for people who want or end up being people of note, that is different. That is different. But on a personal level, you can have a fantastic day. Okay. So none of that. An intense new moon. very insular. Okay. August 12th, the total solar eclipse, new moon at 20 degrees and 2 minutes of Leo. First, let's talk about eclipses and lunations as regard as to vicinity impact. If you're not in the eclipse path, this will just feel like more like a visceral new moon. Solar eclipses move a little faster than a regular new moon just because that energy moves in and out quick, that kind of eclipsed, and then it's over very quickly. So this might bring the energy of something that you feel like, whoa, what was that? Except this one will show you clearly that a normal lunation would maybe only nudge, but it's going to show you clearly from the inside. We'll talk about that more. The sun rules Leo. This is in its own sign. Nothing is filtering or borrowing its light from somewhere else. This is Leo at full strength, undiluted. The moon, Mercury, and Jupiter, while not talking to the moon in aspect, are also packed in there with it. Everything this month points at the same things: being seen, leading with your whole chest, and making something real. And we're going to get into more of the nitty gritty of whether that is making something real, even though it may be hard to make yourself feel seen. We're going to get into deconstructing the myths and the garbage about Leo. But guess what? Not all Leo placements are comfortable feeling seen all the time. And that is going to come from a lack of normal validation from an early environment. Somebody would never approve anything you did. Somebody would never say good job, right? That is when our brain is still being wired. So anybody with Leo placements could have problems actually being seen and not want to be the star of the show. We have a range of emotions. We have a range of expressions, right? Mercury and Venus both have like easy, clean lines to break through thinking. There is an interesting thing happening with everything at 5 degrees here. Again, not talking to the moon, but talking to each other. And that's going to matter, especially when we get to what house, what planet is ruling what house in your chart. How do resources, partnerships, job, those kind of things show up for you at this time? Your mind and heart get real tools and not just noise for this eclipse. Not the vain, attention, hungry, main character, energy, Leo. Again, lazy astrology. And Leo deserves better than to be a punchline or this exaggerated trope of being an attention whore. Hate it. Vain. Hate it. Real Leo is warmth. You can feel from across the room. It's loyalty that does not quit. It was one of my favorite people's birthday yesterday, my friend Robin, and Rubes, as I call her. And she is insanely loyal. And I will not, because I am loyal, I'm not going to share details about how she has been loyal. But man, put money in front of her and over friendship. Nope. She is loyal to the core. That is Leo energy. Um, it's the courage to actually be seen and not perform being seen. There's the difference. Fixed fire doesn't flicker for attention. It holds steady. It holds steady and it lets other people warm their hands on it. I always say that like Aries is like a whoosh, right? The fireworks. It's cardinal, it's moving. And Sagittarius is mutable. Like it's watching like fire dance. It could be like a brush fire when when it's activated the right way. Leo is the fireplace that other people go to get warmed. It really is. And yes, we could say when we're walking through a house and we see a fireplace, we say, ooh, the fireplace itself kind of has main character energy. Like, oh, you have a fireplace. That's that's that is not for attention. It is functionality that has a warmth that other people feel drawn to. And if you feel drawn to the warmth, of someone else or something else, it's not fair to turn around later and say, well, that's because you wanted that attention. No, there's functionality to a fireplace, and it's functionality that you appreciate. The sun doesn't shine to be watched, it shines out of functionality, right? It shines because that's what Leo lets everything else be, lets it be visible, and it shines because it that's how, the moon is at whatever phase is in its aspect to the sun. And I always say there's a misunderstood part of Leo. I put up a post in Patreon not long ago. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. To be constantly, willfully misinterpreted by society at large while you are trying to make sure everything is up and running. Because what happens if the sun doesn't shine? What happens if the sun stops working? That's not going to be good for all of us. Sometimes we could take a minute to think about how a Leo placement may feel in the sense of responsibility to keep everything else going, that they're not allowed to rest at times. They could internalize that. They could be raised to internalize that. So while that Leo is making sure everyone else feels seen and heard because they value that, they're being mischaracterized. That's a whole other conversation. We'll save that for the Leo video. It's the whole point of the sign, and it's what the eclipse is asking us to do, to practice whether Leo shows up big in your chart or not. It's still that you have a house that includes Leo. You have a house cusp that is led by the sun. And we will see what house this is in and how that pertains to you. But we still have to practice separating being seen from performing being seen. Okay. When we are looking at this new moon solar eclipse, and of course, that is at 20 degrees and 2 minutes. What's interesting is it's not really having a conversation with a whole lot. We see it at 20 degrees and 2 minutes. There is not a whole lot else in this chart around that aspect. So the degrees I want you to pay attention to again is 17 through 26, and then we're going to look at things from about 2 degrees to 7, 8 degrees. When you have those, you might really feel like things are happening around this new moon eclipse. If you don't have a chart to look at all your different degrees, there are plenty of ways to get this on my Patreon. There's a couple of levels. If you purchased a moon calendar, you'll get one. And they come with a cheat sheet and an explanation video as well, to kind of do a walkthrough of how that chart works, what the tables mean. It's not a reading, but it is a walkthrough. So you're like, I don't know what any of this means. This looks Russian to me. We're gonna clear that up for you. When you get it, you'll get the cheat sheet and the video along with your chart. Now, I did not give a big aspect to Saturn, although it's at 14 degrees. We could say that's 6 degrees, but it's 6 degrees in separation, and Saturn is retrograde. So that separation energy is really kind of pushing that direction. If it was applying, I might consider it. But if you have planets, of course, at that 20 and 22, the 20 minutes and 20 degrees and 2 minutes, I'm going to say 17, really 18 to 26. You're going to feel this. And the other degrees that, of course, we'll be looking at again and again over the next few months is that degree between 3 and 8. Right now, Venus and Mercury, as well as Mars, starting to have a conversation with those in the personal planets. Now, those will move faster. But Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, of course, are all in that conversation right now, as they will stay in that conversation because they are all slow moving planets. And of course, Pluto and Neptune are in retrograde. And those are all happening around 5 degrees as well. And then to the mix, because those three will be going for quite a long time, we do add that Mercury in Leo and Venus in Libra. Those are also having a lovely sextile. And really needed to correct that word. Now, of course, we're having a grand trine here with Venus, Pluto, Uranus, which is really interesting. We have all those three planets in air. So there could be things that are about communication and don't feel as tangible, because Venus in Libra, while it's in its ruler and we love it there, it it's subjective, right? It's that subjective expression of Venus. So this grand trine is going to open up opportunities, especially if you have planets between 3 and 7 degrees that are talking to any of those three. Now, if you have that 3 degrees and 3 to 7 or 3 to 10, I'm also going to tell you to look at Jupiter in Leo, because that's also kind of loosely in the conversation. Might not be sitting at the table with the rest of them, but it's still in the room. And we can also talk about the square between Mars and Venus as well, because that's going to emotionally challenge you, that what you valued in your head, that you may not have to defend anymore, that you were so protective of and defended a person, an idea, a job, a commitment that was maybe more subjective than producing tangible results for you, or even letting you be valued in the situation. So we're going to understand that there's going to be an inner knowledge with this solar eclipse. And that inner knowledge, that moment, that epiphany might lead us to see something that we were defending out of love. And we might have needed that at some point. And maybe we've outgrown that. Maybe we don't need to defend that person, that idea, that job, our own decisions. We can undig our heels if it's not valuing you. So there's a lot going on here besides the full moon. And as I go around and do the rising signs, I'm always looking at the cusp rulers for your resources, for your everyday job and life, your ambition, career movement, and of course, partnerships. And those planets and the conversations they're having are going to play a part when we go through all those rising signs. I really do think that this new moon solar eclipse, and what we think about a solar eclipse really is that it's that more intense version of a new moon. That is that new moon darkest phase, right? And we have to look inward. The answers are going to be inside of us. The door opens from the inside. I can use another 12 analogies, but you get it. In this whole conversation between power, transformation, seeing through facades, epiphanies, realizing that there is a second way to do things, that we've been putting action out, or protection, or defense, or nurturing, someplace where we're so invested, making sure everyone else feels seen, that we've been valuing what's subjective and possibly not valuing ourselves back. We can take this new moon and this solar eclipse and let us move on from any stuck energies, out of dimming your own shine, out of ego death, depending on what spectrum you're on in that Leo axis, right? Where you're at with your identity. And ego doesn't mean that you think more of yourself than anyone else. Ego means a part of my identity that has been formed around saving this relationship, defending this person, defending this job, defending this ideology, right? It becomes identity. It is ego in that way, not ego the way that you're a total asshole and you only think of yourself. Those are very separate things. Who have you told, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and now you feel like you have to prove it? And it doesn't even feel good inside, but you're just so determined because you need to feel like you need to prove it to others. These are the things that are going to come up, and the energy may feel loud on the inside. And so, the less resistance you give this very insular moment, the less available, the more available that change and aligning with your own value instead of just making other people feel valued. You can do both. The aligning with the truth that you know possibly before you see evidence. It's going to be one of those. And we have to listen to that. If we lean into this, if we trust ourselves, if we listen to that feeling when everything else is quiet and dark, then we allow the illumination. Then we allow this illumination to do exactly what it's meant to do. And I'd like to remind everyone that every time that we let go of an attachment that no longer serves us, that we let go of a little piece of our identity that we needed at some point to survive something, that we don't need to make our identity anymore. The moment we trust ourselves, that is liberation. You are not losing anything, you are liberated. Sign, I want to remind everybody this moon is cyclical and so is the work. Nothing here is the end of anything. It's one more turn of a wheel that keeps coming back around. All of these new and full moons, when we put a little work in, it will be easier to identify with where we can look next, what path to take, what is right for us, how can we use the energy. Again, sorry, I'm going to say the moon planner is really great for that. It's also great for like you feel like you were lazy one day, which by the way is a social construct to help to justify enslaving people and whipping them by saying, hey, well, they're lazy, can't get them to move any other way. Lazy is a social construct. In Victorian times, you were considered a gentleman or a gentle lady or a person of importance if you laid around all fucking day. Okay. If you look at even Jane Austen's writing and somebody says, oh, what profession does he hold? Oh, he doesn't have a profession. Oh, he's a gentleman. Okay. Take lazy out of your vernacular. It's meant to weaponize people, originally people of color, and now it's meant to weaponize all of us. And I will get off that soapbox before I make this a 2-hour TED talk. But the moon calendar is great for understanding what days you're going to naturally have more energy and what days you're naturally supposed to rest. So you're not fighting against yourself and you're not punishing yourself. You're not psychologically or emotionally punishing yourself for where your energy levels are at. Again, that's on my website. But that cyclical energy is what we're supposed to be leaning into. And the more you get to know yourself based on the moon, the easier it will be to like figure out what to do next, how to best benefit your life in a way that makes you feel stable and trust yourself. Because trusting yourself more important than trusting me or anyone else. Anyone else. If this is hitting your chart in a way that you want a deeper look, real academic astrology, no fear mongering, no new age fillers, that is exactly what a reading is for. And you can find it at SuzzyEvolutionary.com. Okay, again, eclipse falls at 20 degrees and 2 minutes of Leo. If your rising sign is at or under that degree, then you're going to listen to your own rising sign. Again, now remember, a lot of the planets I will be talking about are going to fall between that 3 and 7 degrees. But for the house you're listening to, for what this new moon, where it's going to show up, what house, you're looking for 20 degrees and 2 minutes. Now, if it is 20 degrees and 3 minutes up to 29 degrees and 59 minutes of any sign, any rising sign, you're going to listen to both your rising sign and the rising sign after. I promise you, this is the way. Yes, that was a nerd reference because the eclipse will have already crossed into the next house. And if you don't have your exact rising degree, you're not sure, message me, go to my website, hit the contact, and put in your birth info, which is going to include your time of birth and your place of birth. And by all means, I will just email you back with your exact rising degree. No charge, not a problem. But I need your time and your place as well. Okay, here we go. Aries rising, this lands in your fifth house of joy, creativity, romance, risk. This is how we express. This is how we most want to express a lot of the times. It's also what we're willing to risk to feel joy. Whatever you make simply because you want to make it, whatever passion, project, spark you've been circling gets real momentum now. This is not a house playing for the small things. Money and partnership are being run by that same planet, Venus, and so it's completely at home there. It expects resources and relationships to kind of move together easily, and with the emphasis on the fog dissipating, the revelations both inside and outside, truths that you may know before you see evidence of them, and the aspect from Venus to Mercury, and also the square between Venus and Cancer. Your resources and your house of partnerships, house of commitments. I'm going to tell you that you're going to work with the resources you have. You're going to work with the partner that you have on the contingency that you're doing that, really listening to that inner knowing and trusting yourself as well, making sure you are being valued. Because that eclipse in the fifth house is really about how have you set up? What do you know that you feel like you want to move towards to? How have you set up your life to please everyone else? And what feels so loud inside that you're willing to risk not ignoring it anymore? And I love this for an Aries rising, and an Aries rising is up to the task. Your daily work loops back into that fifth house spotlight, the job that lets you actually create and perform, that's being run by Mercury for you. So you're also talking about that sextile to Venus, and so choosing your words, curating your words carefully can bring more value to your position, if you are, especially if you're working at a company, if you're working for somebody else. Reputation is under a very quiet redo, and it's landing on your own sense of identity and what that means to you now. This is a great time to like change up the resume, get rid of anything that's not your belief systems around work anymore, add anything to it, redo it, refresh it, and make it feel new and really authentic to what you're looking for and not what you feel like you should be saying to get picked. Taurus rising, this eclipse lands in your fourth house, home, family, private foundation, your sanctuary, wherever you're building at home or the version of family, redefining its a real spotlight here. Again, we're talking about Leo, that inner voice to say it's okay for me to have not just be running everything, but to make sure this feels like my sanctuary too. Make sure that I feel the warmth and not just giving the warmth. Nothing here needs an audience. It is, and sometimes it can feel suffocatingly without validation. That's going to depend on an individual basis, but it is your job from the inside out to make sure, without relying on other people's validation, that it doesn't feel suffocatingly silent here. And that's for you to rise up or create your own validation. And then whoever could not hear you the first 100 times you asked, that may call for some change in how much effort you put into those exchanges. Doesn't mean you have to cut people off, but how much effort where you're not maybe possibly being as valued as you could be. Money conversations and home conversations are almost the same conversation here. We're looking at Mercury. Don't be surprised with that Mercury, with the sextile with Venus, and Venus in a trine with Pluto and Uranus. Feels like anything having to do with resources, kind of rerouting straight through your living room. Um, there may have to be a decision about what's draining you and what you need to do so that resources are not something that feels like it's as much of a burden. Listen, we have lots of options these days. Uh, Partner might be a little quieter than usual, less about big declarations and more about the small, honest exchanges that could build real trust or break real trust, depends on where you're at in those relationships. Career movement is happening behind the scenes for now, but researching where you want to be, who you want to be, what you want to leave behind next is probably a good place to focus. Gemini rising, this eclipse lands in your third house: communication, the neighborhood, the gas station you stop at every day, but also contracts. Are you making videos? This is like, right, this is creating communication also. Uh, Filming or figuring out what to say, how to say it. This is a big one for anyone that is that Gemini rising that is both so extroverted and introverted at the same time. If you know, you know. This is a big one for anything that you are looking to put into words or publish and get your voice out there and what it feels like you might be risking. And I think when we're talking about Leo and risk and being seen, I think as long as you don't see being seen as being a risk and let all the chips fall where they may, the people who are meant to see you will see you, and trying hard and putting your effort into getting that handful of people who just for their own lack of capacity cannot see you. Stop putting your effort there. Stop putting your effort there. Those people are meant to motivate you to self-service as far as validation and risk. And I think sometimes, even if we think of risk in the emotional sense, it's much smaller when we detach the idea that anybody else's opinions of us are any of our business. That's just good life advice, but the risk seems so much smaller when we take that piece out. Nearly everything this month reroutes through the same house by rulership. The money, the partnership conversation, even kind of your career are all tied to how you're communicating right now, especially with those aspects from Venus to Mercury, which means that the words that you choose are doing more than usual. Even though this for Gemini rising, it's showing up in your third, that second house is still ruled by the moon for you. And so lessons of validation and balancing your introvert and extrovert side are just really on the menu for all of your houses. Daily work has a quieter, more protective energy, little less hustle, more looking after what you already have. Let yourself follow that interest, that curiosity that we love about Gemini. Even if they feel a little scattered, just try things out. It will sharpen you. It'll sharpen for you later. You're not required to have the whole thing figured out, right? I mean, Gemini risings, you guys are so much fun. I could talk to you forever. You're entertaining as fuck. You may take a little longer to figure out your DoorDash order, but but that is the nature, like, of that Gemini rising, exploring fully the options. And thank God for Gemini placements, because the stagnancy of somebody who would never explore all their options will catch up to them. So you've got the built-in anti-stagnant stagnant placement if you have Gemini placements, and you should be grateful for that. Cancer rising, this eclipse lands in your second house. This is the one where the eclipse and your self-worth are the same event. The sun itself is at full strength in its own sign, sitting right there, nothing diluting it. This Cancer rising, your house of resources, your house of self-esteem is lit the fuck up. Lean into that. There's nothing diluting it, nothing borrowing its light. Whatever you decide you're worth this month tends to stick. You say who, you say how much. Got me? Couldn't help myself quoting pretty one. Work is generous and expansive right now. Fantastic. The more offers, the more room to grow into. You've also got Jupiter and Mercury both showing up in Leo right now. It, I mean, this is a really nice new moon solar eclipse for you. And it could be tied to something public. So just really, I know the caretaking, right? But be very clear about what you're agreeing to rather than letting it happen around you. Career is personal right now rather than forceful. It's about how you show up, not pushing harder. Let your sense of value come from you first. No one else gets to set that number for you, Cancer. Leo rising, this eclipse is happening right on top of you. Obviously, if you're after 20 degrees and 2 minutes, this is happening in your you're going to listen to the Virgo rising. Might be happening in your 12th, or rather it will be happening in your 12th. So there's a big difference, which is why I'm always making a big deal about, like, what is your rising sign degree, because that makes so much of a difference where you're listening to for the eclipse, because there's a big difference between a first house eclipse and a 12th house eclipse. Okay. Your moment is more than anyone else's this cycle. And it just is. And don't let anybody make you feel guilty. How you show up unfiltered is the whole story right now. Look inwards. What do you feel like you should say? And what part of you is editing because you don't want to be perceived as an attention whore, or this, or they're always making it about themselves, or whatever else. Do it for you. You are very good at being present and making other people feel seen and heard. And other people who have a problem doing that are probably the first ones pointing their fingers at you, and don't listen to them. Money is tangled up with self presentation this month. How you value yourself, how you're perceived are pulling from the same well. And worth noticing, work and partnership are both asking for the same thing, an honest look at what you actually believe rather than what you've been coached to say or what you are building that insurance policy on. Because all fire signs have a tiny bit of active abandonment wound. And that's probably a little tiny video for another time. And they all express it different. But all signs and all humans unknowingly, subconsciously create the insurance policy, as I like to call it. I have never heard anybody else call it that, but that's what feels so relatable. And so let it happen. If something ends, let it happen without treating it as a failure. It's in review. It's not a step backward. It's a readjusting. Career feels kind of easy right now, well received, especially through how you write or speak. Even if you don't think that you're the teacher and this is like baby steps and you're just letting your voice be heard, it's probably landing better than you think. Let yourself be witness. That's the entire point of this eclipse. Trust that inner voice. Virgo rising, this eclipse lands in your 12th house. Rest, closure, but also this is institutions. This is really Virgo rising because you can worry too much about whether it's correct enough, whether it's the right thing enough, whether, like, God forbid you're wrong, right? And so trusting yourself here is really highlighted instead of the inner critic. So for Virgo rising having this in the 12th, it's not about just get quiet in that eclipse when everything is dark and everything is quiet, listen to the inside. It's not just listen to your inside, it's silencio bruno to your inner critic. Listen to your gut. And remember, Virgos, because it's about to be your season. And I love myself a Virgo placement. I have a couple of my own. And it is about the peacefulness in what you produce and not pursuit of perfection. Trust me, a big key to inner happiness. I just want to ask for you less of your output and more of your recovery. If Virgo placements are feeling a little burnout right now, this is a good day to knock off for some rest. Just you're accidentally going to call into work. Shh. I will write you an excuse note. Just email me and I will give you an excuse note for work. Dr. Suzzy said this person cannot come to work today. Money is the easy part of this whole reading. Resources are moving comfortably right now. And if they don't feel comfortable right now, they should be. So look about where you're possibly overthinking. And are you trusting other people or are you trusting yourself? Say what you want to say, and be brave, because work is also asking for a redo around trust and shared resources, worth being precise about what you're actually agreeing to, same as Cancer. Partnership and career both pull into that same kind of quieter 12th house energy, meaning the real progress is either it's happening somewhere private, but also the best expression of this is that you find a person that you don't have to interpret yourself for. You don't have to over explain. You don't have to prove anything. The person, and I will raise my hand for this one, the person that over explains or air quotes talks too much, puts extra context into things, is likely a child that was not believed and not taken seriously and not protected. All ties together. So believe yourself. Believe yourself because what you know is a wealth of information because I know how damn well you vetted that. Give yourself permission to believe yourself and begin the journey of less over explaining. Before it's take time to process, absolutely, but we're processing and not overthinking, you know, before it's said out loud. And maybe you have to say less out loud. Not everything on your list deserves your urgency or your energy this month. Let some things go. Again, not failure, simply sorting what doesn't serve you. Virgos understand triage. Libra rising, this eclipse lands in your 11th house. Your people, your networks, your communication, what you're actually building towards. Light is coming up on which connections genuinely support you. And that is something you want to look at as Leo speaks of loyalty, Libra. Which connections are genuinely supporting you, not just in words, but in actions, where you're headed, and which ones you've been kind of keeping out of habit, right? Like I talked about before, not just this eclipse, but that the beginning of that applying energy of the square to Venus, Mars to Venus. You know, where have we been like, this is part of my identity, this is part like this is something that I believe in so much, and just reviewing it. And if you still believe and you still think this is, then great, I love it for you, but please take the moment to review it. Money and partnership both want a soft hand right now rather than a hard push. Force is not the move here. Patience and an indirect approach will get you further. One of the things, and Libras, you are so good at this because you know you're a natural diplomat, but one of the things that I love to do is sometimes using another situation as an example so we can talk about the subject without anyone feeling in defense mode. Because the second you're saying, hey, when you did this thing the other day, that other person is probably already in defense mode. They're probably a little resistance. They're probably having a hard time hearing you. So when I say indirectly, I don't mean passive aggressively. What I mean is bring up a subject that we're talking about the same kind of communication or same kind of whatever. And don't at the end of it going, see, that's what you do to me. Let's just have a conversation and then let it sit. Libras, you are smart. You probably have a smart partner and smart people that hopefully smart people you work with. And for the people who can have the capacity to get it, let them sit with it and let it slowly and quietly fine tune what needs to be fine tuned. Work and career both loop back through that same community house, meaning you know who shows up for you and who is doing real work for your future right now. And that is you, right? And also see who's cheering you on and not side eyeing, like, what if they're doing better than me? Which can be a natural human emotion, but uh, it, there might be a moment where you see someone that you think is in your network, that you think is in your community, and just for whatever they are capable of or not capable of, cannot show up for you when it comes to support. People who genuinely love you do not mind your growth. They'll be excited for you, whatever it means for them. And the ones who just can't bring themselves to be overtly happy for you, you might just hold space for them, but not invest. And certainly not invest and wait to say, oh, I've made it when that person says you've made it. Careful of that. Scorpio rising, this eclipse lands in your 10th house. And this is the one where your reputation and the eclipse are the same event. The sun at full strength in its own signs, it's right on your career point. Whatever you're known for is getting undiluted daylight this month. Great news for Scorpio risings. The sun is shining. This eclipse in your, doesn't mean anything is eclipsed out. It means there is a quiet moment. And then when the sun comes back out, it is all eyes on everything that you've been working towards. And Scorpio rising works hard. They dig hard and they work hard. Whatever you're known for is you're going to get your shine. Money is expansive and tied directly to your visibility right now. The more you are seen, the more it grows. Work wants gentleness rather than force. So don't muscle through maybe what could be handled with a lighter touch. And please have awareness of what might need a lighter touch, because you won't ask for a lighter touch. And still, sometimes something needs a lighter touch, because Scorpio risings, I said this in one of Lori's videos, but Scorpio rising is just kind of wearing an invisible leather jacket at all times. We all think you're cool, which can come off as intimidating for people who don't feel that confidence. Whether Scorpio rising feels it or not doesn't matter. They present with it. They're just wearing that invisible leather jacket. So just remember that somebody might need a lighter touch in that sixth house department, not because you are intimidating. It's because they have admiration for you and they care enough to want to impress you. And so being gentle with them could go a long way. And that's just good, right? That's just good juju. Partnership is happening quietly, privately, but comfortably, well away from the spotlight and your career that is the moon is hanging out in. Let your public role be built on what you actually know to be right and not on approval, of course. This is the difference between reputation that lasts and reputation that just performs well for a while. Scorpio is not about anything for just a little while, so I'm really not worried that much about you guys. Sagittarius rising, this eclipse lands in your ninth house. Beliefs, publishing, the bigger worldview you're operating from, expansion, really. The eclipse wants you to notice which beliefs still fit and which ones you've just been repeating on autopilot. My God, this would be so good for everybody to just take a moment and do this, right? That quiet moment when you get hit with something that you know is not right, Sagittarius rising, and giving yourself then the space to not run from it, to sit with it for a second and readjust, which as a mutable rising, you are so good at. Pivot, not panic, right? Money wants you to go back to redo the plan and fix fix lives somewhere creative. I always say whenever we're getting a square, like we have that applying square, that energy is building from the Mars to the Venus, right? Wherever we have a square, it's not creating a problem. It's showing us where a challenge already exists, but it's also holding the creative solution to that. Work flows easily right now, especially anything tied to your community or network, partnership, and career, both routing through that same ninth house energy, which I love for you, Sag rising. Means that you believe and what you publish. And I'm saying this for a Sagittarius rising that I adore, and I hope they hear me. What you publish right now is becoming your relationship glue to your community and your career path at the same time. See the true thing. You're so good at it. And trust it will land. Okay, Capricorn rising. This eclipse lands in your eighth house. Shared resources, deep trust, the intimacy. This is also can be passive income. This is investments. And this is where we deep dive ourselves, right? That isn't about being seen, but it definitely is about being known. This is not a lost house, whatever the internet tells you, it's a harvest house. Okay. Money wants you to start over from the foundation, not just a patch the number, work in partnership, both tied to that same eighth house. So we are deep diving, and I have said for decades when there is something deep that needs to be attended to, that it just didn't happen one time. That's an easy fix. We kind of have to go in. We know to properly deal with that. You have to put a little salt in the wounds. Scorpio eighth house energy doesn't mind, and Capricorn's a badass. Um, and they get each other a little bit, to be honest. So Capricorn having this in your eighth house is, I don't think, going to be as hard for you as people who do reductionary astrology might say. You want to be seen, and now it's in the eighth house. No, 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 no. You understand the hard work behind things. You really, really do. And so cleaning out layer by layer, sewing up layer by layer is kind of what taking that time to do that. And Capricorn understands time. That's what's going to benefit you because trust is the actual currency. Trust and time are the actual currency, if I can correct myself. Be precise about what you're sharing and with whom. Career, on the other hand, that part feels a little bit more easy. It's comfortable part of this whole reading. It's flowing well. It doesn't need to be forced. And let people in without keeping a running ledger of it, because that hurts you more than it hurts them. Work smart, not hard is the whole theme of the cycle for you. And I want to say this, Capricorns. I have known a lot of Capricorns in my life. I'm a Cancer. We have like a little magnet towards each other, right? And every Capricorn I've known has been hella intuitive. Like some of the best psychics I know have strong Capricorn placements and or are Capricorns. And so running that ledger is unnecessary. It takes time, and we don't waste time, Capricorns, right? We do not. That is blasphemy to waste moments. Wasting money is not great. Wasting time is worse. And keeping that running ledger of I'm going to remember that they were not loyal to me. You already know. You already knew that person. You probably tried to help them be better because that's what Capricorn does. Humanitarian, one person at a time. However, taking the time out of your trajectory to keep a running ledger is unnecessary. It hurts you more because it's a constant reminder of who hasn't been loyal or who hasn't appreciated you. And the other thing is that you already know your intuition is crazy. Use it, trust it. Aquarius rising, this eclipse lands in your seventh house. And this is the one where partnership and the eclipse are the same event. The sun at full strength in its own sign, sitting right there. Whatever is true about a commitment, a contract, a relationship, a business relationship is at full volume. Nothing is being strategized around, but in a good partnership, this is going to allow the Aquarius rising or the, if you're late Cap rising, this is going to allow you to allow actual balance. There's a meme that I love to put up, and I usually put it up like once a year. That says that in this lifetime, it's not only important how you give love, but how you let love in. And that a little bit is the theme for you. And in a good relationship, it's not about strategizing around, but strategizing with partner so that there is a solution to something. And not wanting to ask is something that might come up. And allowing it without guilt is the other. Okay. Money is tied to directly to that same partnership energy here. Expansive, generous when the relationship is a healthy one. Work follows that same thread, kind of easy, comfortable, well supported. Career wants a gentler approach rather than force. Watch that your tenacity doesn't get in your own way. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't execute things that you want to do. But if it feels like it has to be forced, then that is probably your sign to listen to. Be unapologetically yourself. You're just like fucking love an Aquarius for how good they are at that. Like lean in, Fat Joe, lean in, Aquarius. The healthy partner flourishes in that. Also, they know who they fell in love with. They knew, and you already know what happens with the ones who can't. And we're not, those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. Okay. Pisces rising, this eclipse lands in your sixth. And this is the one where daily work, but also your health and your fine tuning, your self mastery, all of that. The sun is lighting up, and then there's a quiet moment, and then the sun comes out again. And we feel that new moon, that intensity, that the answers are on the inside. Pisces rising, you guys are good at that. You're so good at that, understanding what's on the inside. It- the, sh- the sitting with your routines with Pisces rising, I have Pisces in my sixth. Routines are not the easiest thing for me, right? If you've got that Leo in your sixth, but also you've got some Virgo placements in there, that might be a little easier for you. But allow you to take care of yourself. Don't spread yourself so thin, Pisces rising. You spread yourself thin sometimes, not always, not everyone. But when you do, you know how that affects your physical energy. And so that's what I want you to be looking at. Money would rather move a little sideways than on the head this month. So let it have its lateral growth first. And it's kind of tangled up with whatever brings you real joy. So try not to separate the two. We're so taught to separate money and happiness, or like money and what you like to do shouldn't be the same thing. I can promise you, you can love what you do and let it pay your bills. And that is a really lovely existence. And one that doesn't feel like it's oppressive, which is so important to Pisces rising. Both you and the relationship blue and your career path is all cycling here. There's a little bit of magic to letting things happen, which you're kind of good at. And release what's not working though. The attachment, the attachment. This is probably something to look at. And again, if it feels very emotional, the risk probably in tangibility is less than what you think it is. Um, and ripping off the band-aid in a way that's gentle for you, right? You know how to ghost, right? Something when it's not working, but clear the space in a way that doesn't make you feel like you also have to hide once you clear it. I love you. Okay. This total solar eclipse is not a regular new moon, and that matters, right? It's going to nudge things along. It's going to help you decide things. Whatever's been sitting kind of half committed, feel into it, feel inside. What is trust yourself? The risk for joy, see where it's defensive or emotional or where we've outgrown things, right? Because that is key here so we can make room for what actually brings us joy and we're not blocking it. Wherever this eclipse landed for you, you're not behind and you're not too much. There's no shame, I mean, fuck shame, in outgrowing a version of yourself that used to work and that you needed at one point and you don't need it anymore. That's why it's not working anymore. Not because you're a failure, not because you didn't have follow through, not because you're stubborn, because you outgrew the need for the trauma response that became part of the identity. That's just what growth looks like, right? See you next lunation, different moon, same sky. It's still cyclical. I hope you will come back. Leave me tons of comments. Don't forget to check out the moon calendar and look at my available appointments. Come hang out on the Patreon, all that good stuff. I also have a TikTok. I'm not very regular on that though. I love you. Now you love you. Bye, everyone.